If I told you a story, would you know if it was true? If I showed you two sunrises, and I said I saw both of them on the same day, which one did I see?
There's a land that I heard of.
There were three of us. Mike was the youngest, Warren the oldest. Or was that me? No one ever remembered how old I was. We lived in Rangoon, Burma, which was a province of British India at the time. Mother and father were second-generation British Raj expatriates. Father worked for Solomon's Importers and Exporters, and mother looked after the house and the servants with the help of Nana. The house itself was big and sprawling, but it was the garden that I recall fondly. No gardener had ever touched it, and it was our own miniature jungle. We spent hours playing in there. Maybe that prepared us for what was to come. Days were warm and colourful, and we were happy. And then it happened. We were standing outside our home, opposite the Shwedagon Pagoda, which glittered gold in the afternoon sun, mesmerised and looking upwards into the sky as aeroplanes dived over the city, unloading their destructive cargo. Bombs were being shed, and machine guns rattled. We were suddenly yanked away and hurled down into the air raid dugout in the garden, overlain with plants for disguise. The Japanese had invaded Burma, and their army was headed for Rangoon, having swamped Siam. We grabbed what belongings we could and bundled them into the car, leaving everything else behind. Not long after, though, the car's brakes failed, and we had to abandon it. Now we had to walk. Occasionally we could catch a ride on a bullock cart, but for the most part the 500-mile journey north from Rangoon to Mandalay, where our cousins lived, was done on foot. This was the real jungle. It wasn't just jungle, though. Often we walked on dirt roads past farmlands. However, it was the jungle that stuck with me. And the temples. Do you know how many temples and pagodas there are in Burma? There's a lot. For us, they are a chance at food. Even Nana, who was a devout Roman Catholic, welcomed the sight of the temples. The days blurred. We slept in bamboo tents, and we were hungry. To distract ourselves from the hunger, we would make up stories. One was of a spirit, all in white and covered in flowers, who dripped water like diamonds. She would guide the hungry and the lost to safety. One week, we had had so little food, it kept us awake all night, and at dawn, one by one, the three of us stole away and crept into the jungle in search of food. We heard the sound of water, and suddenly came to a clearing to find a large lake covered in lily pads. And there she was in the centre, all pale and white, surrounded by flowers and strands of wet black hair. She smiled at us. The next day, we came across a little bridge which led us to a temple, where they gave us bread. Bread was a real treat. Soon after that, we reached Mandalay and our cousins, and we spent a few comfortable days in the city. Our cousins took us kite running, and we watched as they covered string, ground up glass and glue, and attached them to their kites. Then they would fight against other kite fighters, trying to break their opponent's string. And when one kite flew away with the cut string, we would chase after it, for there was a prize if we could find it. But we were weak from our long journey and soon grew tired. Our cousins decided to stay in Mandalay, thinking that the Japanese invasion of Burma would soon be over, while we headed 200 miles northeast to Lashao, hoping to catch a plane to India. We learned later that they had been sent to Japanese prisoner of war camps. The journey to Lashao passed in a blur, and when we arrived we boarded an old Dakota turboprop aircraft headed for Calcutta. We saw a different temple this time, all white and pale, with flowers. Except, if you look at army records, Edgar and Cecilia Barrett only had 2 children when they landed in India. All white and pale and surrounded by flowers. If I told you a story, all white and pale and surrounded by flowers, would you know if it was true? And the water dripped off her like diamonds. If I showed you a sunset, where in the world did that light fade?